For this next panel, let's introduce Chad Hooker, Principal at Fulcrum Equity Partners, John Flavin, Founder and CEO, Portal Innovations, LLC, Maria Toller, Founding and Managing Partner, Steel Sky Ventures, and Ryan Collins, Principal, Nora Mosley Partners.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Excited to be up here today. Chad Hooker with Fulcrum Equity Partners. We're a growth stage private equity fund based here in Atlanta, and we invest broadly across the healthcare ecosystem. We do a lot in different physician specialties. I've seen a couple of our companies here. Areas like behavioral health, post-acute, really any clinical service delivered outside the hospital, all early stage, lower middle market companies that we partner with here today. Just want to say a kind of a quick thank you to all of our sponsors and Mark and team at Health South Connect for putting this together. I think tremendous value in terms of bringing together all these business leaders across various areas of the healthcare ecosystem. The knowledge sharing, the collaboration is incredibly valuable, and it's great to get together with all of you. So today we've got a really interesting panel. If we were more creative, I think we would have a better tagline other than healthcare investing, but we'll work on that for next year. Excited to introduce kind of our three panelists here. They can tell their story a little bit better than I can. So we've got John Flavin. John, he's a successful entrepreneur, had exits, has started a VC fund, recently opened up an office here in Atlanta. Excited about having you here investing alongside us. Maria, her and her team focus on women's health, digital health. She launched her fund in the middle of COVID here from New York, so interesting to get your perspective on how it's been in the Southeast, what kind of opportunity you saw. And I think Ryan brings a really unique perspective as well. At Nora Mosley, him and his partners have been investing in healthcare in the Southeast since the early 80s, so have a ton of unique perspectives and thoughts to share as well. So maybe as we go around the horn here, I'll kind of kick it over to you guys just to share more about your background, your fund strategy, and kind of any thoughts on major key themes that you guys are seeing in the market.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to start. My name is Ryan Collins, as Chad said, with Nora Mosley Partners. We focus on early stage, high growth investing. Half our firm's focused on B2B software. The other half is focused on healthcare IT and healthcare services. And even the B2B side does a lot of stuff that sells into healthcare, like cybersecurity. Typically, we're kind of at the Series A, Series B range, and we've invested kind of anywhere kind of Rockies East. And as Chad mentioned, we've been around for the last 40 years here in Atlanta. Maybe we can kind of do intros and then we can go into some of the themes.
Good afternoon. I'm Maria Toller, founding and managing partner of Steel Sky Ventures. We invest in women's healthcare with a focus on AI, healthcare infrastructure, and digital health. We are excited to have been a part of the Atlanta ecosystem, and one of the reasons that we moved the headquarters from New York to Atlanta is because of the incredible universities, health systems, and overall support that the city of Atlanta has given to us and our fund. Excited to share more today.
Hi, I'm John Flavin, founder and CEO of Portal Innovations. We're an early stage seed through Series A investor focused on therapeutics and med tech. We started our platform in Chicago, where we're fusing our capital investments into state-of-the-art laboratory space where our companies live with us. We expanded here to Atlanta and are doing our grand opening in our beautiful Science Square Labs facility, just a few blocks away from here. And we're very focused on building a portfolio of companies that are emerging out of these top research institutions here in the Southeast region. We are a national brand and are partnered with CalSTRS, the pension fund in California. They've invested $100 million for us to be able to deploy into our ecosystems here in Atlanta, Chicago, Boston, and Houston. We believe that Atlanta is well poised for tech bio, fusing a lot of things happening in engineering, computing, applying it whether through AI or in the future quantum to medicine. And those scientists need the right community, they need capital, and they need the ability to be able to work in the right environment. And so we're excited to be here in Atlanta launching our labs.
And you guys bring up some great points, and a stat I saw the other day that sticks with me about the Southeast is if you take the sum of the GDP of Germany and France, and relative to the sum of the GDP of the Southeast, including Florida and Texas, and this slightly larger. So it's a massive, massive ecosystem. Echo your sentiment on, the university talent. I think Georgia probably graduates more engineers than any other state, which is a great pipeline of tech talent for us. And it's definitely underserved when we think about capital providers. You could probably count the number of venture and growth equity, private equity funds on one or two hands. So it's feels like that there's a ton of opportunity, and excited to have you all here in the market as well. So we'd probably be lying to ourselves if we said everything was going well at our portfolio companies. There's always challenges. I think for the audience, it may be helpful just to hit on what do you guys, what kind of 2 to 3 top challenges are you hearing from your companies? We're in this perpetual supply-demand imbalance where we've got 300 million Americans that need care. There's only like 1.1 or 1.2 million physicians. 25,000 graduate from fellowship every year, and there's more than that move to part-time and retire, especially with the boomers aging. So staffing is something that we're hearing a lot about, changing payment models, the rigmarole, the FDA approval process, and things like that. Be curious, what insights would you guys share with the group in terms of how you're facing some of the top challenges at your portfolio companies?
Yeah, I'll mention a few. So I think one of the first ones that comes to mind is kind of that dynamic that's the result of the last couple of years of really tremendous capital going into the early stage venture market. So as a software company or tech-enabled services company trying to sell into pharma, employer, payer, provider, so much capital went in to so many companies, and all of those end customers have been inundated. I'm sure many of you yourselves have been inundated with vendor fatigue, and so many, like 10 different solutions all trying to solve the same problem, and it makes it very difficult to wade through that noise both as a buyer and a seller. So I think that will continue to settle itself out over the next couple of years, but I would say kind of point solution vendor fatigue is one that we hear frequently across a couple of different end markets. I think there's a couple of headwinds across healthcare and various kind of segments. A lot of companies focused on kind of the Medicare Advantage side with some of the challenges around V28 that has made risk adjustment harder. I think it was we had to do something to make risk adjustment, correct some of the actions in that market, but companies focusing in there has been challenging. And some of the MLRs for these Medicare Advantage plans have been challenging, and I think you're going to see cutbacks from the supplemental benefit perspective. That's a headwind that I think some of our companies are facing. And then I think finally, one other one that comes to mind is just there's the amount of money that's gone into these companies in healthcare. Many of them were valued as if they weren't healthcare tech-enabled services companies, and many of them raised a ton of money at valuations that seemed great at the time, but now it's a little bit harder sometimes as the market's corrected to justify that. And so it's made it a little bit challenging for portfolio companies that have such a high bar to clear that valuation. So.
And I would totally agree. I think that's one of the biggest challenges for companies who took in money at valuations that were just too high, and now they're unsustainable. So in the past 18 months, we've been seeing these companies falter and go out of business. And we were pretty disciplined with our portfolio and our portfolio companies. And so we had them actually cash up to take advantage of this opportunity in the market. And so as their competitors couldn't raise because the valuations were too high, they were able to come in and buy them for pennies on the dollar, sometimes quadrupling the value of their companies overnight. And so we took this challenge in the market and changed it into an opportunity. And this happens when you exhibit discipline in your financial, when you're thinking about how you're spending your finances, how you're investing in your company, how you're managing your cash flow as a startup. And it's really easy for startups to get starry-eyed when somebody's waving a $100 million valuation in your face. But when you have less than $1 million of revenue, you have to understand that that's not the best thing for your company. It doesn't make sense, and it will hurt you in the long run.
We're playing at the front end of a long journey, typically focused on developing a therapeutic application. So we're usually the first institutional money that's going into a new venture. We're seeing a tremendous groundswell of interest by academic institutions around the country, beyond Boston and the Bay Area, that have recruited in a brand new phenotype of innovator that is interested in spinning out companies, more so than in the past. And with that in mind, there's a lot of new first-time entrepreneurs. And so a lot of the challenges that one faces when you're investing into a very promising technology base, but a first-time founder, I would say that this was a particularly difficult environment to be raising capital within on one hand. On the other, it was a good time to be in the market in the sense that valuations have been more sobering, post pandemic, keeping in mind that in the life sciences sector, record levels of dry powder were accumulated into dedicated life sciences funds over the past 3 years. Most of that money has been earmarked for earlier stage investments because those investors, even though historically they've invested late in the cap table, they're moving earlier because the science is moving so quickly. New transformative types of treatments, CRISPR, curing sickle cell now, CAR T, gene therapies, AI is entering the marketplace. So those are all attractive tools that are, when deployed correctly, can be effective at building valuation from modest levels to higher levels. So one of the biggest things that we're working with our companies on right now is preparing for the return of capital at a time when they're going out and raising Series A rounds with institutional investors that are well capitalized, and with interest rates coming down, our belief is that there's a warming in the market. I think last week there were 3 IPOs in the biotech markets, and so that's an encouraging sign that's anticipating warmer weather, for the markets coming out of what has been a nuclear winter.
Yeah, and totally agree. I think we're seeing that too in terms of there's a bigger separation between the bid and the ask between the entrepreneur and the VC fund when they get to conversations about valuations. 2020, 2021 were record years of deployment for our firm. 22 was a record the other direction in terms of zero deployment. It feels like it's even back out. How are you guys addressing some of those conversations with entrepreneurs in terms of the entrepreneur may still think, hey, my business is worth X because I got X multiple on my revenue in 21. The public markets sell off quickly. It takes a little while for that to trickle down into our world, but how's your pace of deployment of equity into new companies trending? How are you having success around some of those kind of harder conversations with entrepreneurs, as well as when your existing companies go out to raise additional capital?
The value of your company is based on the term sheet that you get and the number on the top, right? It really has nothing to do with what the entrepreneur wants the company to be. It's what the market is willing to give you. And so I think it has been very sobering for a lot of entrepreneurs. And of course, everybody thinks their baby is worth $100 million. And I believe in that too. But today it's worth 10, right? And so we just have to be realistic with them because we want the best for the companies. We want them to be sustainable and grow. And a part of that is being smart about your valuations. For our companies specifically, they kind of operate with our same philosophy. And so what we found is the companies that really went back to their fundamentals, right? Before they were giving out checks to anybody, with an LLC. Now you have to have a path to profitability. It's not just grow at all costs, cash burn $1 million a month, for a little piece of revenue. People are much more stringent about the metrics to get a check.
Yeah, and I think it's been easier conversations, though, with those entrepreneurs. We're at a point in the market cycle where this is not new information that capital is scarce, valuations have come down. The leading indicator of the public markets, falling apart well before, those entrepreneurs, coming out of 2021 may have had, stars in their eyes and not willing to reconcile with the real current capital market conditions. We're in an environment now where I think there's a greater, realism when we're looking at companies. And what's been interesting to watch is, again, like any, return into the cycle, there's a flight to quality. There's a selection process. We can go upstream in the terms of the kinds of companies we're able to be prudent at investing in at this point in the market cycle, where in the past, if you're investing at the peak and riding the downside, you're buying, at a high valuation, inflated valuation levels, and watching your equity values come down. So I think, we're of the mindset now, we're in that moment where we're swimming out to the swells and riding the market upside along with us, but with a more disciplined crew of founders and entrepreneurs that have come through that, more chilling environment that we've just come out of.
Yeah, I think if you go to that conversation with the founder and approach it from a data-driven perspective and say, hey, here's some comparables in the public markets, and here's what they're trading at, and here's where their margins are at, here's where your margins are at, and here's where their growth is, and here's where your growth is. Talk to an investment banker who covers the space and say, hey, what are comparable companies selling for? And if you show up to that conversation, I think you can read from the same sheet of music. And if someone else is willing to pay a much higher price, it kind of is what it is. But I think that resonates, and you can also provide case studies of, hey, here's some areas in our portfolio where we made that mistake of not kind of valuing something off of the fundamentals, and they've struggled to raise or they've struggled to sell, and it's impacted the business performance down the road. I think that kind of draws in a founder that wants to work with you and kind of work together to find a solution for all shareholders, management and VCs included. So.
It's kind of our sweet spot and our wheelhouse as well, kind of in many ways based on how we build companies in our own journey to get to the point where we're now deploying capital into these startup companies, being in alternative markets that we're not surrounded by large amounts of capital sources. So Chicago, Atlanta, Houston are places where you need to have a little bit more of a blue collar ethic as to how you're building value at each inflection point, how you're hitting milestones. And every element of what Portal inculcates and the companies that we're a part of and the syndicate partners that we're working with is reliant on the ability to know what that milestone is, hit the milestone, and be resourceful. So one thing that has been a benefit, I think, through this period of time is we've seen non-dilutive capital sources like NIH, SBIR grants that have helped our companies, ARPA-H moving into the market to help innovate some of those things and strengthen technologies at the startup company level in the life sciences arena have all been augmentations or benefits that have allowed these companies to build value without taking on dilutive capital while they set the stage for hitting those milestones.
Yeah, and I think although there's been a pullback in terms of how companies are valued, I think what still gets me excited is that we're probably 8 to 10 years into a 30-year macro shift of healthcare adopting new technology. I think everybody's probably made the joke in the room that healthcare is 10 years behind. You walk into some of these physician offices and they start running off fax machines for referrals. And there's probably a lot of people in this room that have never sent a fax, including myself, but it's just the reality. And so I think that, from enterprise technology, workflow adoption, we've got a really long tail to run. And similarly, if you look at the amount of private equity capital that's been raised, it has to be put to work somewhere, and it's got a time clock in terms of that deployment cycle. So hopeful that post-election, post-interest rate cut, we'll see a larger pickup activity in 25 and 26. Okay, so we'll pick up a fun topic here, remote work. Good or bad for a VC company? There's pros and cons to anything. I'm sure you guys are having a lot of conversations with your founders and management teams around what's the new normal, what's the direction we want to take it. We want to have the best talent, so we take the best athlete approach, and sometimes that means you got to have a hybrid structure, but it's hard to maintain and scale culture, especially in a growing organization. Talk a little bit about some of the conversations you're having with your companies and philosophy around hybrid, in-person, remote. What are you finding works well?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think that we generally have a belief that it's much better to be in the office together. We see that work better for our firm. We've been in the office together really for most of the last couple of years, 5 days a week, and I just think it leads to much better productivity. But at the same time, we have companies that, when we say that, push back, and I think rightfully so, saying, hey, we hired some great talent across the country, and we're not going to terminate half of our workforce because they don't live in the same city that we're all headquartered in. And I completely empathize with that. And so I think in those scenarios, you've got to find very meaningful ways to get together as frequently as possible. Maybe have more structured kind of virtual get-togethers. And then maybe if you can, if there's a certain function like the engineering team finds itself more concentrated in a particular city, build around that. And then I think going forward, if you didn't hire, a large majority of your company during the pandemic, I would really try and find local talent and try and build in a certain nexus, because we have seen outsized performance for companies that do that.
For us, we think that a hybrid approach works, and it also depends on the business model of your company. A lot of our companies are more cost efficient because they're using call centers in Tulsa, and it's not New York prices, New York, talent. You can find great talent everywhere, and that's one of the great reasons of, being here in the Southeast. There's incredible diverse talent, and that's one of the beauties of these hybrid work environments. You can get talent from anywhere, from different geographies that will bring different perspectives, different network, different ecosystem partnerships, and I think that has been a true value add for a lot of our portfolio companies who do use the remote or hybrid workforce.
Yeah, I think growing a biotech or med tech or healthcare company today is largely going to be scaled in a distributed fashion. So our model in particular involves space, and the reason the space matters is the unique infrastructure that we're offering. So chemistry and biology, those kinds of things are difficult to do, in your bathtub at home, and so having a place where you can gather and convene is required for most of the original scientific team. Now, moving beyond the science and being able to grow and scale a company, you need more than just scientific expertise. You need a high caliber CSO, a CMO, a CEO, a CFO. And we found, great, in many ways, a core part of our thesis is that Atlanta, Chicago, Houston can now rise because you can access remote talent even on a fractional basis for these young companies that never would have thought about participating in an Atlanta company, but they're a star CSO based in Boston. And with Portal's national model, a lot of those individuals still like to come into the office or be part of a community. So we're finding companies that have more than one location with Portal, with the scientific team in one place, the management team in another, or working remotely from where they are. So I think we've embraced it. It's a real advantage in many ways that opens up ecosystems that could not access that talent because of the need for physical movement or full-time status of picking up a family and moving across country and taking a big risk. That risk is now being mitigated through remote work.
And companies that haven't been flexible have lost great talent. We've been able to acquire some great talent because Generation X and millennials, they do not want to go to the office anymore. They didn't grow up in that culture where you needed FaceTime and, are standing at the water cooler. They're interested in working remotely, and so we kind of have to shift our paradigm to fit what the market is demanding in terms of what they're looking for in a work environment.
Yeah, that's helpful. And I think the trend we're seeing with our companies is sort of the center of excellence model. Instead of, I'm going to have one dot on the map, HQ, and everybody's going to come in every day, but it's, let's build density in 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cities, open up small offices there. Not everybody has to come in every day, but we definitely encourage it. And so you do have that sense of community and culture and teamwork. And then the first group that we said, we got to figure out how to way to get everybody in the office is the sales team. We need everybody high-fiving and feeding off the energy. Like I think you guys said, especially for our tech companies, R&D engineers tend to be just a little bit more introverted and productive and can do more and that be measured, working remotely. So we all know healthcare has a ton of buzzwords and acronyms. Just wait till you start talking to VCs because I think they probably rival healthcare for the most buzzwords and acronyms. So I'm just going to throw out a couple big ones like AI, value-based care. What does that really mean? Personalized medicine. What are the use cases for AI in healthcare? Is it more just a buzzword? Are you seeing your companies adopt it? Are you seeing them try to find ways to leverage Gen AI within the product that they're selling in the market? Value-based care versus fee-for-service. It's been talked about for a long time. Some states are more progressive than others. Just tell us, tell the audience what you guys are kind of seeing on the buzzword front and how real it is and tangible.
I mean, AI is real for us. I mean, both on the way that we identify investment opportunities. You know, we've developed our own proprietary tool called Stargaze, which allows us to use machine learning to predict where the innovation is going to happen, who are the rising star innovators within a university ecosystem, what are they working on, and where is the science converging, so that we can have a relationship with a founding scientist even before a company gets founded. So we're using that tool immensely to figure out, is Atlanta the right place for Portal to be? Within Atlanta, who should we be talking to? Is it James Dahlman? Is it Omar Anand? Should we be interacting with Dennis Leota? Of course we should. And so those are the kinds of things that tool is helping us start conversations with rising stars in ecosystems with investable founders. The companies that we're seeing that are coming through, AI is being applied to anything from understanding and mapping the next protein therapeutic to understanding better what the right genomic sequence might be, or applying a certain CRISPR application to a certain cell type. So we have a number of companies we've invested in that have those core features that are almost becoming required parts of the operation. So we're not of the mindset of we're going to invest in an AI company and figure out what it's going to do, but there's a clear market need and application, and the AI is a core tool of how that company is attacking that problem and presenting faster, more effective ways to deliver known, clinically proven applications, but doing it in a faster, cheaper, and more effective environment.
I agree. I think AI is going to be woven into the fabric of every company in some way, shape, or form. When we're thinking about healthcare infrastructure, we're trying to think of how do we infuse AI now as we build these companies so it's not an add-on later. So we have actually brought on the CEO of ARM, which is a huge semiconductor chip company who makes 70% of the world's chips. He's joined our advisory board because he's really interested in understanding how AI is going to work in medical devices, remote monitoring tools, and we're partnering with them as we are kind of on this journey together of how AI will change healthcare, because it will, and it will change quickly. So for us to be partnered with a market leader in coming up with, how to make sure these things are culturally competent, how to make sure they're safe, it's something that we think about every day and something that we instill in our founders and companies that we're potentially looking at early on.
Yeah, I think kind of like most technology adoption, AI will take a little bit longer in healthcare, and probably rightfully so. It's people's lives are kind of on the line, and you want to make sure that the way that the models are interpreting the data is accurate and doesn't contain biases. Where we've seen it to date in our portfolio is more kind of on the back end and more horizontal ways where engineers are using it for coding help. We've seen a number of applications kind of in the healthcare call center space where that's being automated. As I think about like areas in which there's large unstructured or kind of quasi-structured data within healthcare, areas like coding, some claims analysis and analytics around fraud, waste, and abuse. I think there's definitely applications. I think John's world may even have more than kind of your typical HCIT. So I think it will be slow to adopt. I think that we're being careful how we navigate it. I saw at my last healthcare conference, which I've attended a couple times, I think a third of the companies had rebranded .ai at the end, and so we've got to just make sure we pick our spots. But I think you'll see adoption, but albeit slowly in healthcare.
Yeah, I think AI is a good response to kind of two questions. How do we solve this inflation problem? And then how do we solve this provider shortage problem? Better, more efficient productivity. And I think AI can play a really big role in that over time. So for kind of entrepreneurs in the room, what advice would you give somebody thinking about going out and raising capital in today's world? Say they want to go out and raise a Series A round, seed round. It's their first time taking institutional capital. What thoughts, general advice, tips would you give an entrepreneur as they're building their business?
I think that planning process needs to start almost as soon as you raise your most recent round, because it is your ability to be successful in that is driven by the decisions that you make, frankly, every day. It's not like you can go to the market and kind of change the fundamentals of the business. At that point, like, you need to be thinking about, in particular in today's environment, like, am I able to grow efficiently? Am I able to add revenue and not spend excessively? Is my sales team being efficient? These are all things that we're looking at, and everyone will dig in deep during diligence, particularly at the Series A and B level. And if you're not able to do those things, then I think that you need to, with your board, think through what is the best path for you. Maybe raising venture isn't the best path for you. Maybe getting to profitability and maintaining your ownership in the company is the best path for you. It's not venture. It's not the best solution for every company. It's for companies that are trying to win a market and grow very, very quickly. And not every company can do that. And so I think you just need to be honest with the board and with yourself. And if you have those metrics, then that's kind of a different subject of how do you prepare for a fundraise. What diligence do you need in the data room? What does your list of investors look like? Should you be talking to strategic investors versus financial investors? I think the more prepared you can be and understanding what those investors are looking for and being very cognizant and talking to the right investors so that you're efficient with your time will go a long way to making that an efficient and successful process. And I would also say that, like, yes, earlier we mentioned that the market is there's been a downturn. I think we all know that, but there are still deals getting done, and there are still deals getting done at premium valuations because there's still significant capital on the sidelines. And if you have kind of the metrics that really get growth equity, venture capital investors excited, like, those deals will happen. And so I wouldn't be too discouraged.
I would say to make sure that you have the right founder product fit. A lot of people talk about product market fit, but what we really look for is, are you really the right person to lead this business? I could believe in your business model 110%, but I might not believe in you. And if you aren't, and it's a hard story to tell, surround yourself with people who fill in those gaps. It's not a total lost cause. If you're the tech founder, you might need a chief medical officer to be with you in this co-founding partnership so that you can add credibility. And so that's really one of the most fundamental things that I think people forget when they're going to fundraise is, if you won't have all the answers, you won't be, kind of the one-trick pony, but who's on your team and what is the reason to believe that you are the person to do this business model? Because believe it or not, I know everybody thinks their ideas are 1 in a million, but we literally see 30, 40 of the same ideas coming in every day. So the only way we can differentiate from these very similar business models is based on team and maybe your approach. Number 2, I know it gets very, very discouraging as a founder, because I've been one myself, to be knocking on doors and getting no after no after no. The reason a lot of people are getting no's is because, like Ryan said, they're going to the wrong investors. So if you have an idea on a napkin, you probably should not be talking to anyone on this stage, right? We are investing at Series A after you have, a couple $1 million, you have healthcare contracts, you have payer contracts. That's the right time to talk to us. And so you're going to save yourself a lot of agita if you just really do your research on the right investors at the time. It might be going to the bank to get a loan. It might be government money. It might be angel investing. But just make sure. And also, do the research on the VCs. I'm investing in women's healthcare. If you're coming to me with a sports-related company or something in climate, I'm not the VC for you. And I think that's one of the things that I would just strongly caution founders to do, because it's just hard for us. And I don't want to have to say no to everyone, but we have to say no to a lot of people because you haven't done your research. And then when they ask for introductions to somebody else, I'm like, well, you didn't have proper judgment in the research. So that's not giving me a lot of confidence that you're somebody that I should be elevating to one of my other VC ecosystem friends. But if you came to me and I was like, okay, I don't do med devices, but I see what you're doing, I can help you find the right investor for you, but I have to trust your judgment because I haven't known you for a long time. And our ecosystems and our partners are very valuable to us. So we're only going to continue to elevate those founders who we believe would be a good reflection of us.
Just building on what you said there, I think Oftentimes the knee jerk is, I got to go hit the road and raise capital. I often guide, entrepreneurs and founders to think about raising the right partner, finding and selecting who's going to be your journey mate, especially when you think about bringing, a therapeutic or a medical device or a diagnostic to the market. It's a long, arduous, capital-intensive process. So you're going to have to be thinking about who are the people that you need with you that can carry out that relay race, getting through that first leg of the journey. Who is the right partner that is bringing to you not just capital, but ideas, thoughts, and is willing to kind of believe in your vision as the founder and the entrepreneur. And I think it's building that momentum and the give and take that goes into the founding team that also includes a close connection to a venture partner in that journey that is also going to make those connections to the right affiliates and partners and syndicate members that you're used to investing with, or key opinion leaders that you're able to put in front of the founding team. All of those types of resources go above and beyond capital and set the company up for greater success once they start on the journey. I think a lot of things can get screwed up in the first year of life. A lot of bad decisions can be made, and finding the wrong partner, maybe just out of convenience, at the wrong valuation, or a large amount of capital being infused into the company, but a more thoughtful approach to how do you build a company and what insight are you bringing to the world, including with that venture partner, that gets the outside world interested in supporting you in that long journey. Because you're going to need those friends, you're going to need the balance sheet, and the cycles will come and go, and the value will fluctuate, and sometimes milestones can't be hit on a given time period because the science won't cooperate. So I think that founding principle and the founding partner, along with that entrepreneur, I would guide that individual or team that's getting an idea off the ground to be working very closely with a trusted partner that is informed by the market. You're not working in a vacuum. We work so closely in sourcing our opportunities inside of academia. And academia is world-class when it comes to generating intellectual property, new insights, new technologies, and new ideas. But oftentimes, there's not a connection to the outside marketplace. What's commercializable? What's the application? What problems are being solved? So I think finding people with money, more money than you, that want to partner with you to get your idea off the ground, that believe in your unique insight and the unique way your IP could be transformative, for patients way down the road. At the end of the day, all of us are trying to find solutions that improve patient lives. And from the faculty researcher all the way to the medical physician that's doing the treatment at the end of the day, there's alignment there. But doing that at the beginning of that journey and painting the picture for how we get there really relies on finding the right partner early on.
Yeah, I think dating's a great analogy for this one as well, because I think the average hold period for a VC company is something like 6 or 7 years.
10 years.
10 years. 10 years, yeah.
The life of our funds are 10 years. We have 10 years.
And then there's automatic extensions after that for a reason.
Yep.
So we've had some companies we've been in 12 or 13 years. One company we've only been in 1 year. But the average, like we said, is closer kind of in that 5 to 10, depending upon the stage that the fund's entering in. And so talk to as many people as you want and try to find somebody that could differentiate and add value in addition to just bringing capital. Because I feel like good companies, there'll always be a market for them to raise money. But who do you want as a strategic thought partner that's going to help you grow your business, whether it's through connections, customer introductions, ... Well, so we'll go around here one more time, and maybe we'll just talk about a recent deal or company that you invested in. Tell the audience why you found it interesting. What was the thesis? What got you excited about the opportunity? What were the kind of key proof points that you were able to validate during diligence to build the conviction to make an investment? And then as we get, on the other side of the election, what are you guys most excited and passionate about for 2025? We're kind of going into budget strategic planning season here in the fourth quarter. Talk about what gets you most excited for 25. And I'll kind of start with a recent deal. We just closed an investment in a group called Physician Services of South Carolina. They've been around. They were started. He timed it perfectly. He started it in February of 2020. They staff and provide nurse practitioners and MDs to provide primary care and geriatric care services to patients inside skilled nursing facilities and assisted living facilities. They also provide psych services as well. So I think for us, we got excited about it's a big market, aging population, shortage of providers. SNF and ALF is a really important part of the post-acute care continuum, and it's a way to play long-term care without having to own the SNF, which has a lot of kind of more challenges given brick and mortar smaller margins. And so how can we be on the right side of the cost curve in a meaningful way? You look at some of the status quo was really the local primary care doctor would stop by on Wednesday afternoon to make rounds, but it's inconsistent, poor communication with the families, and so having a practitioner or clinician on site, so if there's a slip and fall, there's somebody there, that patient doesn't get discharged to the ER, which we all know is really costly, affects the quality ratings of the facility. So that's an area that we see a lot of opportunity in, both organically as well as being able to partner, acquire some of the smaller mom and pop providers to really be, a kind of a leading regional provider. And it's also a space too where you've got kind of traditional fees for service reimbursement, but you also got more progressive states and plans where capitation and value-based makes all the sense in the world. So that's one we're excited about.
Yeah, two quick ones. Our two most recent were both kind of around the workforce problem that health systems face. One is in the outsourced medical coding world. Oftentimes, I would imagine some of you out there have struggled to attract and retain medical coders, and it impacts your collections. And we invested in a company called Kode, K-O-D-E, of course, and they provide a variable solution that's syncs into the EMR. You can pay on a per chart basis and specify which level of coding experience you would like on a per chart basis so that you take a fixed problem from a staffing perspective at these health systems and turn it into a variable cost and improve your collections kind of overnight. The other one's in the credentialing space. Oftentimes health systems can take a couple of months to bring providers on, and we've got a company called Actual that helps automate that credentialing process with the primary source verification to reduce that onboarding and credentialing time and get hospitals access to revenue more quickly.
As a women's health fund, we have the amazing opportunity of bringing companies and introducing new verticals into venture capital. So I wanted to highlight one of our amazing companies called MIDI. It is a virtual menopause clinic for women 40 plus. Women, once they are no longer in reproductive age or trying to have babies, they usually age out of the healthcare system around age 40. And so this is one of the first clinics of its kind where these women over 40 are able to understand why they have brain fog, why they're having bone pain and pelvic floor issues. And so this company has had explosive growth. We've already made 6x on that in 2 years. I'm just telling you, while a lot of companies are, going this way in digital health, and like women's health is exploding, and that's just one unique example. Going into 2025, we're really excited about the work we've been doing with the White House and with ARPA-H. The First Lady has started the first White House initiative for research and innovation and investment in women's health, and we have been working very closely with them to bring visibility to women's health and also increase investment. And so being able to partner with these government agencies and to understand how we could build sustainable growth and a sustainable investment in women's health, we're really excited about that because it's been a while. Women's health has been underfunded and overlooked for a very, very long time. So for us, having been on the ground floor of these efforts, it's just a testament to what we are doing at Steel Sky and what the ecosystem and community in women's health is doing.
Yeah, two quick ones. We helped a company spin out of Northwestern University in our Chicago portfolio 2 years ago. We're part of the founding seed round for that team. The founding scientist, Nathan Janeski, had unique insights into how to build polymeric materials that could mimic a peptide that could be useful in attacking certain drug targets in cancer that previously were undruggable. With the buildup of that team in our laboratories in Chicago, we were able to bring in a world-renowned expert, Jeff Dewick, who had been a founder of Millennium Pharmaceuticals, Exelixis, out in the Bay Area. and brought in that pedigree of talent that allowed us to be able to get through proof of concept. In our world, it's getting through in vivo proof of concept to then raise that larger A round at a stepped up valuation. And indeed, that's happening now. They're closing out a $50 million 3x step up in valuation. Blue chip, including a large pharma company that's interested in the cancer target that's been de-risked through the early preclinical work that's been developed so far. So insight from the scientists, leveraging of our lab infrastructure, leveraging our scientific knowledge and insights around how to run the right experiments so that that company will be attractive to the bigger fish in the continuum. And then more recently, really excited about in making our first investment here in Atlanta in a company called Moonlight Therapeutics. They're working on a patch that's entering the clinic for peanut allergy. Obviously, a large unsolved problem. There's only one product in the market that's treating patients, but has an adverse profile, very hard to tolerate for patients, both adults and pediatric populations. So we're hopeful that with greater convenience and greater efficacy, by investing in this company and supporting it here in Atlanta, it has great promise for making an impact in an area that needs to be addressed.
I realize I didn't touch on the 2025 piece. Some areas I'm personally interested in, the firm's interested. We spend a lot of time kind of in the specialty pharmacy space. We actually bought a majority of an ambulatory infusion and specialty pharmacy company. More focused for 2025, trying to help employers manage the costs associated with specialty drugs. It really only takes kind of one, sadly, employee coming down with a condition that requires a $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 drug, and that can completely blow up your health plan. And so finding ways in new PBM models, specialty carve-out models, different kind of financing solutions, new commercial health plan models that can help employers better mitigate their costs, because it's really challenging. I think ours went up like 30-40% over the last couple of years. So.
Well, John, I'm going to come see you after because my 4-year-old daughter has a peanut allergy and we can't figure it out. So
it's a large growing problem. I mean, join the club. I have a son with food allergies as well, and I think it's a problem of today. It was not a problem 30 years ago, but it's a massive problem that needs to be solved.
Well, thank you guys so much for being here. John, Maria, Ryan, really appreciate all the unique perspectives shared with the group today. And thank you guys for all joining the session. Really appreciate everything.
Thank you.